Hello everybody. So today I wanted to talk to you about how to make your own cables, how to terminate your own cables. Now, there are many videos on how to do this. The one thing I noticed though was that they don't give you the little tips and tricks that go into making it so much less frustrating when you're first trying out. So how do I know that? Because many years ago when I started out, network engineering related jobs, there was an opportunity for me to go tag along with a crew that was going to rewire entire stores, automotive stores, up and down the West Coast, western parts of the U.S. And I wanted to know how to do all aspects of my profession, including cabling. So I learned how to fish cables. I learned how to use pull ropes, little tips and techniques that has served me well. How many houses have I wired now? Families and friends, maybe 5 or 6 houses. But anyway, I learned how to, and again, that school of hard knocks, tips and tricks, that's what I want to convey to you today. Okay, that's my bona fide, depending on how you say it. So with that, let's get started. But first, I want to talk about some tools that you're going to need. And let's go to this. So the first one here is a crimper. It's called EZ-RJPRO HD. I'll show you the websites in just a second here. This is a Fiskars electrician's scissors. Interestingly, I couldn't find this when I only found these on eBay, so I don't know if they stopped making them or not, but there's a replacement that I think will work for you. You don't want to be cutting cables with normal scissors because it'll damage the teeth and it'll just be frustrating. These things pretty much cut through everything, so these are great scissors to have. They may also make a great box opener for Amazon deliveries. Here is a Belden cable stripper. There is a newer version that's meant for what's called bonded Ethernet cable. That was kind of a fad. I shouldn't say fad, kind of a popular thing. But this one doesn't do that, and you're not going to be using bonded cables. So again, I'll show you a replacement for this Belden thing. This one here is a keystone cap here. This is to terminate into a wall so that you can plug in the jack. And if you want to see how to do these, again, it's quite simple, but let me know, and I can make a video on how to terminate these inside of a box. Finally, one of the more important things is a diagonal cutter. Why do they call it a diagonal cutter? Well, if you look at it, it's hard to see. Oh, there you go. You can kind of see the diagonal part here. And the important thing is that this is flush. And so when you cut, you want to make sure you cut on the flush side so that you get as close to the cable as some of you are cringing right now, right? Don't worry, I'm not going to snip myself, fingertip off. But it's to get as close to the tip as possible when you snip it off. And you'll see why that's important in just a second. And then, of course, you have the jack, RJ-45 jack. By the way, RJ stands for registered jack, for those of you that didn't know. The reason why these, and I'll show you where to get these, they're all from EZ-Snapjack Platinum Tools Company that make them. So the reason why they're so useful is that it's hard to see on the video, I know, but you'll see it when I run the cables through. There's a hole here which allows me to, when I terminate the cable, I can push the cable all the way through and it actually extends past the jack, allowing me to snip it when I crimp. And I'll talk about why that's so important because, well, I'll do it now. So the reason why this is called twisted pair is that the cables, each pair is twisted so that it offset any kind of interference. You can read about it. You can Google it. So for Cat 5, it's okay if you leave a couple of stranded, quarter of maybe 3-4 centimeters or quarter of an inch untwisted. Signal will still get through, especially in Cat 3. You can practically use barbed wire for Cat 3 and it'll work. But Cat 6, Cat 6E, you definitely want to keep those twists as much as possible. All right, with that, let me take you to the websites so you can kind of, again, I have nothing to do with these companies. I just like the tools. And I'll put descriptions of this in the description below. So this is that HD crimp tool that I talked about, this bad boy here. And again, I like it quite a bit. The other one is the RJ-45 jack. You can see, you know what, let's get rid of my recorder here. Sorry about that. So you can get a starter kit that has coupled strain relief, I think. I'm not going to show you the strain relief, but pretty simple to use. Here's the diagonal cutter, and this is from Klein. And I'll say that you can buy these for $1 or $2 maybe. This one is, what, $16? So when it comes to this diagonal cutter, it's one of those, when people buy tools, people say buy once, cry once. So you definitely don't want to cheap out on these diagonal cutters because they do make a big difference when terminating cables. Now the Fiskars are no longer available, but you can see here Klein makes almost looks identical, and in fact I think they may be identical, but Klein makes great tools. I'm a huge Klein fan, so although I haven't used this, I have no qualms about recommending them. Here's the Belden, the stripper that I talked about. This one, this is the B version. This is the A version, 1797A. Again, it has some separators for bonded cable here. It's 25 bucks, but you don't need it because you're not using bonded pair. You don't need the separator there, so you can just use another Klein tool. Again, I haven't used it, but it's almost half the price, and I trust Klein completely. All right. So with that, let's go straight to and talk about the cables. All right. So two types of cables. These are both solid core cables. So you can see here, these are pretty stiff, and they're usually meant for in-the-wall application. You don't want to use a stiff cable like this going to your desktop because it's kind of unwieldy and stiff. However, when you're first starting out learning how to terminate cables, buy solid core cables because it's easy to learn, much easier to learn how to terminate using solid core than stranded. The other thing, when you buy these jacks, make sure these jacks here, make sure they're rated for stranded and or solid core cables. Some jacks are meant only for solid core. Some jacks are meant only for stranded, and there are others that can do both. So just be aware of that, and the Easy Snap jacks can do both. All right. The other one is, let's go to and get going on how to make the cable here. By the way, let me go to this. This setup right here is so that I can have I don't know where my GoPro case is that I can put a tripod on. So I have this Routing TCP/IP book, great book by the way, and so I just cut a hole into the plywood and made a quick stand. So the first thing I'll show you is the two different kinds is, so let's start with this guy here. Unlike, by the way, I keep saying by the way. Anyway, this cutter here actually has this distance here is supposed to be the optimum stripping so that you can get the twisted pair inserted. You can see how kind of they match up, right? So you can see how all three kind of line up. You don't have to worry about that because we're using the Easy Snap jacks. So take about an inch and a quarter, maybe. What is that? Maybe 2.5 centimeters, and just clip on it once. Here's pro tip number one: when you're spinning it, there's no danger in cutting yourself. Don't worry about it. Put your finger tight on the cable. Press all the way against your finger, and that way you have a positive stop. So they just spin it once or twice, and then twist it, and off it comes. Okay. And then you can use your diagonal cutter, and these little, you can barely see them, but there you go. You can kind of see that. Some of them, these are filaments. Sometimes they're kind of like ropes. Just when you're pulling the cable, it's a strain relief, so you can pull the cable. All right. Notice that this guy has just cables, the twisted pair, nothing else. Okay. Other cables, like this guy, let me cut this off. And you'll see the Fiskars in action here. Very easy to cut that off. Go once or twice. Here, you'll notice there is kind of a plastic thing that, again, gives you a little bit more strength when you're pulling cable and protects the twisted pair cable. So either one works. You can buy these if you like. But the way you deal with that is you bend all these down, the cables down. Again, because of diagonal cutter here, press it all the way down. Make sure that a cable's not standing up, like this, where you come down to cut it. And look how, if I were to cut this, I'm going to cut that orange pair off. Okay, I've done that many, many times. It's quite annoying. So make sure you press it all down, double check, go all the way across, and snip it off. It's very important that you get this as close to the base as possible. All right, so let's go ahead and come back to this blue cable here. And oh, I didn't show you this, but I'll just do it live. So there are two different standards. Let's go back to this. So if I just type 568B cable 568B standard. Okay. So these are pictures of 568B. Okay, here we go. You can see the 568B. The way to orient this is, you see these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pins at the top? What that's showing is these pins here at the very top. Okay, so the way you orient them is if you go back, so notice that the gold tabs, the contact, the vampire tabs are at the top here. Let's go back to the computer. So in this instance, the orange is on the left. Okay, the white orange pair is on the left, and brown is on the right in that orientation. If you flip this over, and this is how I like to work with a tab, this pull tab here, to the top, then the white orange sits on this side. Okay, because over here it was on this side. So of course if you flip it over, white orange starts here. So what are there two standards? I forgot. I used to know, but the 568B was I believe the original used by AT&T, and it's one of those things that it's very, very. I have no idea why, but if you're 56B A user, 568A user, excuse me, you're just an animal. Go with 568B. That's the original. That's the OG. So stick with 568B. Why do people get so religious about it? Who knows? It's like VI versus Emacs, and of course we all can agree VI is the far superior one. Or to date myself, the other emailer was Elm and Pine. Great debate on Elm and Pine, and of course Elm is far superior than Pine. So once again, VI or Emacs, VI wins, and 568A or B, you're an animal if you use A, so stick with B. So pro tip number 2, although these holes are meant to be used as a twist, you can stick it in here and turn them right there. I just use the casing that we just cut off. It actually works really, really well. And when you first start out, it's kind of stiff, but as you use them, it gets looser and gets easier. So you just pry it open and then just spin it. Okay, and notice how easy that was. And then the next thing you do, pro tip, you want to put your finger on the bottom of the casing and put it on top, and then you're going to kind of hook it and bend it. So I'll do it sideways here. So instead of just pulling it, it's you get much more leverage if you kind of bend it, and notice how I'm doing it in an arcing fashion, right? If you do that, it's much easier to straighten out, and all you do is just do that. Okay, let's do this one. This one's pretty curly here. You can see the white orange. So again, go to the bottom, grab it, and make a curl. Do it once or twice, and you're good to go. Okay. So when people say white, orange, white, green, brown, blue, white, brown, brown, that's the white, orange here. You can see the white striping orange. It's obvious. Some cables, when you buy them, so the white, orange, and the white, brown are very hard to distinguish. They're very annoying. So it's good practice when you start out to always put these in the compass directions so you know which one's which. Another pro tip, when you're starting out, make sure you don't make your life harder by having the orange over here. Okay, so notice the orange is, it's very hard to show this. I'll do the best. The reason why is you want the base not to have any crossovers at the base as much as possible. So since the white orange is going to start first, move it over to the far side so that nothing else is there and it's not crisscrossing already. All right, so white, orange, grab them and then kind of just pinch them together. The next one is white, green. So it's kind of like pool, stripe, solid, stripe, solid, stripe, solid. So it's white, orange, white, green. So let's go ahead and grab that white, green guy. Twist it. Bring it over. Again, kind of a curling, hooking motion. And then let's do the green while we're here. In fact, you know what? While we're here, let's just do all of them and get it over with. So notice what I did there is I used this as a kind of a crimper. I put that in and I twisted it to open it. And you might think, just use your finger. When you're doing hundreds and hundreds of these a day, it'll save your fingers. It'll get very, very sore. So using the sheathing here as a kind of a buffer, glove, whatever, makes a huge difference. Okay, all right. And then let's go to the blue, white blue. So let's do that. One other thing about making cable, learning how to make cable, it's like owning a pickup. Your friends will call you every time they need to move. And so if they know that you know how to make cables, they will come and ask for you to help terminate cables. But it's fine. It's good skill to have. So white, orange, orange. White, green is next. Okay, so far there's only 3. It's easy to keep it in its own lane. So white, orange, orange, white, green. When I add the blue, okay, and again I'm trying to make this base here as clean as possible. So I'm trying to make this base so that there's not a whole lot of crossover there. So white, orange, orange, white, green, blue, and then white, blue. Now it gets a little bit more, so I need to make sure these are in order that I just placed them in. So the way to do that is pinch the cable. So notice they're in order, white, orange, white, green, blue, white, blue. And then slide down, keeping pressure on it. Grab it from this side and this side, the top side. And then you're going to go back and forth while putting pressure. Okay, notice what I'm doing with my finger. I'm going back and forth. When you do that, and you have to keep tension on it, and then you keep following up with the trailing finger here. When you do that, it actually puts them nice and tight like that. Okay, so that's pro tip again. So there's green. I put the green there, and just do a quick wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Then, so white, orange, orange, white, green, blue, green, white, brown, brown. White, brown, and brown are not really, you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Move it over, make it less crossover at the base there. And we put them all together. And for the final one, pinch and do the wiggle, wiggle. Okay. So for those of you who had children of certain age, you remember the wiggles? Choo choo chugga chugga big red car. So that's the wiggle. Think of that as the wiggle that we're doing here. All right. So next thing we do is we're going to snip these. Again, the length here doesn't matter. Normally they want it this. So think about how much harder this would be if that's all you had to work with, that width right there that you see. Okay, here we don't have to because the jack that we're using. So again, let's do a final check. White, orange, orange, white, green, blue, white, blue, green, white, brown, brown. That's perfect. Take the diagonal cutters. You don't have to get too close to your skin because you can pinch and cut yourself here. So you don't have to be that close. And then you're perfectly diagonal, and then you snap it off. Okay, nice solid edge. That's important. This is probably the hardest part, and I'll give you a pro tip. You have to try and place this so that all of these cables stay in line as they come out to the hole. You're going to see in just a second. So the trick to this is holding this this jack as kind of at an angle. Let me see if I can do it vertically so you can sort of see it. So instead of just trying to place the jack like this and going straight, okay, what you're doing is you're going to go at an angle so that the cable, the tips, hit the top of the jack. Okay, you can kind of see that right there, right? Instead of going straight like this, you're giving positive pressure and you're keeping the cables against the top of the jack there. It's very hard to, yeah, there we go. Okay, so notice that angle, 45-degree angle versus going straight like this. So this is straight, and I'm angling it this way so that I can keep the cables pinched against the top, and that will allow me to just slide it in, and they all come out perfectly every time. Okay, that's a pro tip. So what you do then is make sure you kind of dress the cable here and push it all the way in. Don't be shy about pushing it all the way in. You want that twisted pair to come out here as much as possible. Okay, and then flip it over and double check. Notice there's very little untwisted cable there. So the final check: white, orange, orange, white, green, blue, white, brown. I'm sorry, white, orange, orange, white, blue, white, green, blue, white, blue, green, white, brown, brown. Always check, because you don't want to be crimping and cutting and wasting a jack. Because once you crimp these down, you can't reuse them. So then you get the crimper here. Okay. Again, making sure it's nice and tight. Push it through. Have the cables come out all the way to the other side. And notice it's all seated all the way in. Okay, that's important. They have to be seated all the way in. And while you're pushing the cable, just crimp the jack. Give it a nice solid, and you can do it twice. That's fine. And there you go. All these got cut off, and that's what makes these easy snap jacks, in fact, really easy to use. If you have some of those old jacks lying around, this is all you have to work with to be able to push it in, and it gets very, very annoying. All right, like I said, I hope those helpful tips will be helpful. And if you have any questions, comment below, like, and you don't have to subscribe, but at least hit the like button so that other people, YouTube algo lords, will recommend this video to other people who might be looking for how to terminate cables. And like I said, if you want to see how to do these keystone jacks, let me know, and I'll make a video on that as well. That's it. Thank you very much. Take care. Oh, finally, I forgot something important. So there are riser cables, riser rated, R-I-S-E-R. It's meant to be kind of fire retardant, because once these are in the wall and you're going from ceiling to floor to floor, you don't want the fire to go roll up if you have these in the walls, right? So they're riser rated. Then you have plenum rated, which are more almost fireproof, much more fire retardant and smokeless, so that you don't allow fire to travel between floors. Different parts of the country have different rules about whether you have to use riser or plenum. Different countries in the U.S., if you're doing your own wiring, you have a little bit more lax. If you're doing commercial, absolutely not. But then again, if you're doing commercial and you're watching this video, you're in bigger trouble than I thought. All right. Thanks to everybody. Take care. See you next time.